Hello and welcome to Colin Bradley Artcast. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
How you doing, Dad?
I'm well, thank you. Yes, yes, keeping well, Steve.
Good.
Nights are drawing in the UK, and the weather is just changing slightly now. We've had a few very, very good days over the last week. Very sunny days. Our beach was very busy, but it's all changed now. I think the autumn's set in good and proper. So knuckle under some more work now. I think get the finger not out and about quite so much.
These are the months where you tend to spend more time in the studio working.
Oh, without doubt, yeah, yeah. I get more done. Obviously, for one thing, the other with the lovely weather we've had and the warmer weather we've had, it can get very stuffy in the studio. So I find because I've got all the lights are on and windows are closed, has to be because of the noise. Doors are closed, so it can get very stuffy. So I find during the warm weather and the hot weather, I can't spend too long in there. An hour at the most, probably, and then it starts to get uncomfortable. But of course, during the winter time, I can spend as long as I want in there.
Of course you can, of course you can. And you have been busy this week, so we've got a work in progress picture to show everyone, which we'll
Hmm.
do at the end of this episode. But we've also had a couple of questions that have come in from our members. So we'd like to discuss them. We're going to trial a new feature as well through the software that we use to record these podcasts, where hopefully I'll be able to show the picture on screen live and we can chat about it and move things around. Otherwise, I normally add the picture in the edit afterwards, but we're going to try and do it at the same time if we can today. So
Good.
the first question we had came from Carol, and Carol asks, "Hi Steve, I hope this finds you all well and you're unpacked now after your move. I've been watching your dad's video of the morning exercise, and whilst doing the sky, he mentions a couple of times the importance of not getting any pastel on the church spire and building. Whilst watching this, I also wondered whether you could use some masking tape rather than masking fluid, although I don't know whether that would work either. To mask off the spire and the church to keep it free of pastel. Would you please ask your dad for me?" So just to remind everyone which picture we're talking about, it's the morning exercise. So I'm going to hopefully have put that on screen. Can you see that, Dad?
Oh, well done. I can. Yes, yes. It's a
Good.
nice picture. That I can understand exactly what is it Carol
Carol, yeah.
is talking about. The the problem you've got with masking fluid and you've got with any masking tape is that it will leave a residue on the paper. You can't really avoid that. Masking fluid is not quite so bad, but you've got to get the lines dead straight. You see that church tower, how important it is to get that absolutely straight. Now, with masking fluid, you think, well, I could do that. I could get that straight. But if you didn't, if you were slightly out with it, what would happen is the masking fluid, when you start putting, not so bad with pastel, but if you did it with watercolor, you'll find it very difficult to get the combination of the two together. Masking tape wouldn't work at all. That would leave a residue. So forget all of those. There's no need for any of that at all. I say don't put the pastel on the church spire, but you can't avoid it completely. You can do the best you can, but the problem you've got is if you're going to put a cloud on, like I've got going, looking as though it goes through there, the spire, you've got to have a compatibility. Now that means you've got to overwork some of the sky into the church steeple unavoidably. I mean, you've got a line drawing which you've got to make sure is good enough so that if you put the pastel over the top, you can see it. But you can use a soft eraser. It's what I do to get rid of the pastel. It comes off very easy.
Mhm.
And you can get it well, I must have shown that on the video. I can't remember now, but I must have done how to do it. So forget masking tape, forget masking fluid. It,
Masking fluid is for watercolor, though. You wouldn't use masking fluid for pastel, would you? In any way?
I wouldn't, certainly not. No, no, and I wouldn't use it for watercolor either, as it happens, because for the reason I said, it can leave a line that is difficult to actually get rid of with watercolor. So no, forget all of those. There's no need them. You don't. I've never used. I say never used. I don't remember using masking fluid
There's only
at all.
one picture that you've used it a little bit on, and that was the Scotney Castle watercolor, and you used it. You only used it in the for the lily pads, as far as I
Oh,
remember.
I remember that. Yes, 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 yes. I did, didn't I? Yes, yes. Well,
I
that's
think
a
that was
bit.
more to show that. I think that was more just to show what you can do with it.
Mm,
You didn't certainly use it on any sort of bigger areas. It was more of a demonstration of how to use
mm.
masking fluid.
No, I've not liked it. What I've seen when I've seen people use it, it doesn't strike a bell with me. You know, I don't like the idea. I like a natural. I mean, if you look at that picture there in watercolor, it's hard to believe sometimes that, that is actually watercolor that you're using. It's only the
This
system
picture's
that
pastel, Dad. This one's
oh,
pastel.
I did one in watercolor, didn't I?
I think so. A similar one, maybe. I don't remember this in
I
watercolor,
get
but
confused. I get confused.
this
Yes,
is
pastel.
pastel.
This is pastel. Yeah. Okay. Well, I forget about forget about it. Don't use masking fluid or the masking tape. Certainly wouldn't use masking tape.
Okay, lovely stuff. Thanks, Carol, for the questions. A great question. I hope that's helpful. Let's move on to Charles's email. So Charles sent us an email. He said, "Hi Steve, I took this photo of a stone bridge. Let me pop that up on screen for everyone. Let's try and see if I can get 2 for 2. Can you see that? There we go.
Yes.
You
Well
can see
done.
that. Brilliant,
Yeah.
excellent. Hi Steve, I took this photo of a stone bridge arching over a roadway in my hometown here in Virginia, with the intention of doing it in pastel pencils. So I started on white pastel board with using Faber-Castell pencils. See how the dark shadows lay across the bright roadway. Well, I can do the dark shadows well enough, but the colour of the roadway is driving me crazy. I have no colour that comes even close to the sunny grey look of that roadway. I don't know what colours to put together to replicate it. What would you suggest I try? And then there's a second part that Charles says, do you think the shadows should be done first and go around them with the roadway, or do you do the roadway first and lay the shadows down over it? So let's tackle the first thing, Dad, this sort of light grey roadway. What colours would you recommend to try and achieve that?
Well, I would use warm colours first of all. I'd use if it's Faber, I would use the. You might have to put a bit of white on there, although you've got white paper, haven't you? You're using, so you wouldn't need to use the white on. And you 270 to start with, and I'd put that on the lightest light part of the roadway, and at the same time, I would use 273 to put the shadows in, put the two together. No need to do one before the other. I mean, probably the light would be the better one to start with, and then put the 273. You've got chance then of getting because you're going to use 273 on top. In a minute, I'll get to that, of the 270. And by putting those in, that's the roadway we're talking about, aren't we? We're not talking about the green, because that's a whole new ball game there. But let's stick to the roadway. So let's say you've put the 270, which is the light grey on, and then you put the 273 for the dark shadows. Now that should give you the contrast that you're looking for. You can manipulate that as best you can. You can either follow exactly what you see on the picture, or you can do a little bit of improvising yourself. Now, once you've done that, I would then use a darker colour, to 175 comes to mind, to put in the dark shadows. Okay, I do that first before you actually then put the 273 onto the roadway, and you'll find that that will give you almost the colour that you've got there. You probably would need to add maybe a touch of black as well, just a touch. It would work quite well because you've already put 273 on the shadow and 175 on the shadow. Now, what I would also do in a situation like this, I look at the shadow there and I see a kind of a slight ochre look to it as well. And if you wanted to do that, when you put the 273 on, as to start with for the shadow, you can add a little bit of 182 in there as well. Because if you're going to put the 175, which I suggest you do, that's also got a very, very slightly browny look to it. And then the black goes on top of that. And that's basically it. You can use 175 here and there to add just a little touch of dark, if you wanted it, on the roadway. And you see there's a few little dark spots, because once you put the 270 on and the 273 on, that will give you a cushion enough to just add a little bit of dark onto there as well if you need to. That's what I would do.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Charles, I hope that's really helpful, and I hope that's also interesting for people to see how you would tackle this. And obviously, Charles, let us know how you get on.
There is one other thing I'd like to point out, Steve. The stone wall on the right-hand side there, that's, again, same colours that I've used there, 273, 270, bit of white, certainly. You could put the white on top of the 270 to give you that kind of light edging to the bricks, or the stone, should I say. And 182 again, that would also add. But what you're doing there is you're using warm colours. Now, if you look at the bridge itself, that suggests cool colours. So it's up to you whether or not you actually also use the cool grey colours. Generally speaking, when I'm looking at a picture, I try to follow what I see. Now, you could say, oh, well, I can just 273 on top of the 270 again, adding my 175. If you do that, it's going to change that colour completely. So what you do there is you use the cool colours, 230, 233, and with touches of 181. If you want to. You can't really, well, you could, but I wouldn't necessarily mix the two, the warm greys and the cool greys together. It's unusual. I don't often see that, where you've got cool colours directly against the warmer colours. In other words, cooler colours of the bridge and warmer colours of the brick or the stones. It's difficult to, as I say, it's difficult to get your head around that. You see, if you look at the top of the bridge, where you've got the greenery, that comes back to warm colours again. You see what I mean? I hope people are following this. I've got a great thing about warm and cool colours, and I do often mix them together, but it's something I wouldn't normally like to do. But in this case, you kind of got to if you're going to follow the same colour of the bridge. I mean, it could be the photograph that's creating it. They could actually be those colours. Difficult to say, I don't know. But and I don't know whether Charles actually knows the bridge. If he does,
it's in his hometown, so I think he can go and check it out.
I would suggest he goes along and has a look at them. Look at that with the naked eye and see how that compares with the photographic reference.
Great stuff. Okay, thanks, Dad. Very good, very thorough. Thank you so much. As I said, Charles, let us know how you get on. It'd be really nice to see the finished picture, and perhaps we can show it on a future episode. Excellent stuff. let's now show everyone your work in progress picture that you've been working on this week. Let's try and put that on screen for everybody. So this
Look,
is a Puma that you sent me just yesterday. Another picture that you've been working on, Dad. How have you been finding it?
oh, well, I'm finding it quite easy, to be honest. But people will find those markings tricky. You've got to use, I'm using the 610 in Carbothello. That's the colour that you can actually see on there, that sort of brownie. It's a very, very pretty colour, very attractive.
Yeah.
Having put the whites and not a lot of grey in there, but there is in the ears, but there's not a lot of grey in the animal.
Mm.
704 is the colour I was using for it, but there's not a lot of grey. So it's actually more or less one colour. The darker colour there is the 635 in Carbothello. I'm using a mixture here, and then a little bit of black on top of that. But it's very, very attractive, and it's a lovely animal.
You've not done a Puma in pastel before. You did it in coloured pencils, I believe. There's a coloured pencil Puma.
Did I? I can't remember that. I do so many. I can't remember them, Steve. Sorry.
I mean, I don't blame you. We've got over like 500 odd classes. So, but yeah, there's a. I'll show that at the end. I'll show you that one at the end. But yeah, there is a
All
coloured
right.
pencil Puma. But this one is the first. I think this is the first pastel pencil one that I've seen you do. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, what's interesting as well is I can see you doing the outline here with the pastel pencil.
Yes, yes, that is interesting, isn't it? I was using I think I was using the 610 for that, just very lightly. But I needed it because it's an unusual shape. You know, the head is different. It's a different kind of shape of head. And I wanted to make sure that I'd got those right. The nose looks really awkward there, doesn't it? When you look at that, you think, "Oh, what's going on there?" Well, I haven't
Yeah,
done that yet. I've just started doing the mouth and the nose, and I've advanced the muzzle, that bit round the nose and on top of the mouth as well. I've started doing that now, and it does look a bit different. But I'm dying to get to that nose because it does look weird there. But once again, you said quite rightly, I've put the outline in just to make sure that I don't overrun. But the sketch, it's quite a light sketch. You can see traces of that around the animal, and that because you actually got most of the animal there, but that underneath the mouth, the picture itself is a little bit more in focus. But as it moves towards the back, there's no focus at all. You can make it out, but it's not. So that's going to be really interested. And on the right-hand side, it's more or less in shadow. You can see there's a shadow on that side. Not very obvious at the moment, but it will be once I finish the under the eye on the right-hand side. But it sets some challenges. You know, people have got to find you know, the right system to use, the right technique to use. It's like a little dotting system, but I can see how it could go disastrously wrong if you get it right or get it wrong. So and you could be misled for thinking that I'd sharpen the 610 Carbothello pencil up to a very sharp point and I had to keep sharpening it. I didn't have to do that. You find that you can twist the pencil around. I told you about this last week. And I don't think I think I've sharpened it once while I've been doing that. Otherwise, it's just a little dabbing. You,
similar to the koala, would you say? The koala fur that you've done before in the past?
yes, similar to that. Same idea. Yes. But it's, and interesting enough, you see some whiskers there, don't you? I put those on because I finished that area. That area is not going to be touched again, and it wouldn't affect the background. It doesn't come into play there. But as I get down towards the muzzle, that won't happen. I won't put the whistles on until the end. But it's interesting, very interesting to do, and I was fascinated. What people, I think, might like to know is the more you can see it on the top of the head rather than over the top of the nose and under the eye. So I haven't finished that yet. But I use the colour shaper. Now, I've mentioned this before, I think, haven't I, where I dab it on. I don't blend it, I dab it on. And what that does, it softens it. Difficult to describe it any better than that, but it softens the sharpness of the application of those hairs. You can see it on the nose, really. If you look at the nose compared with the top of the head looks softer. And I've now done the over the nose and the actual under the eyes, and I use that system. Again, just a dabbing with the flat part of the number 2 ivory colour shaper. And I find that looks very, very soft. You could almost stroke it, not that I would stroke him, I don't think he'd have it, or her, he'd have my hand off. But, you get that feeling, you want to give it a pat. So that's something that I've showed this before on pictures, and once again, colour shaper comes into it, and somewhere else it comes into its own too. You see, if you look at the left-hand side, under the eye, you can see where the hair is. Now, below that, you've got a white area. That is white. It's light grey pastel matte paper. You can just see that, I think, by putting... No, just... That's it. Come down a little bit further down there. That's it. The other way down. All this technical business. I'm amazed at you. That's it. Well done. That's exactly what I'm looking at. Now, that area there, it's white has been put onto that, and that's all that's on there at the moment. Now, I have to colour that. Now, and what I did, I used the 610, I have to remember these colours now, 610 Carbothello. I used the side of the pencil just to lightly brush it into the white pastel matte, not white pastel matte, the white pastel colour. And then you use the colour shaper again to smooth it in. I was quite intrigued by that, and it worked really well. If you hadn't got the white in, it wouldn't have worked. You couldn't just put it directly onto the pastel matte because it would stick there and it would mark. But because you've got the white, the 610 can go into that very lightly and transfer the colour, so you get a nice warm look to it. I think people are going to be impressed with that. I was impressed with it when I saw how I actually achieved it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It looks like there's some really interesting techniques in there. So you'll be working on this one this week. Maybe we'll have a finished picture next week.
Oh yes, you will. Yes. I mean the hard work's been done really, all across the eyes and the top of the head. That quite a tricky area because when you've got the top of the head, you have the fur looking quite matted at the top. It has to be that way because it's going away from you, so you're looking at on the side. But as it drops over at the top of the head and then comes down into the nose, it becomes more obvious that it's hair. So that bit is... all of those things, if you put them together, they look stunning. The ears are quite simplistic compared with the ears I've done in the past. But that's what they look like, so I followed that. And the ears, I used 175 as a darkening agent, on top of the 635 of Carbothello. And I was a bit, do I need it in the animal? And really, I haven't. I think I did use it somewhere, but I can't remember where it was. But usually, I find that I use the dark colour that I've used in the ears in the animal. I think probably around the eyes, I put 175. But it looks good, and that's the important thing. It looks good, and it's very true to the reference I've got, the photographic reference. So I'm pleased with
Yeah,
it.
excellent stuff. Yeah, no, it looks great. It looks great. Let's try and try and take this. There we go, off the screen. It's looking fantastic. I can't wait to see the finished one next week, and I'm sure people are really interested to see what the rest of the picture is going to turn out like. You've got all the sketching and the markings down, so we've just got to see it all filled up. So we'll talk about that finished picture next week. As always, if anyone has anything that they would like us to discuss, questions like Carol and Charles, who sent their questions in, then please just get in touch with us. We'll happily talk about them. Hopefully this setup has been successful and you've all enjoyed looking at the pictures as we've been talking. So, hopefully we can do a bit more of that as well in future. But for now, we will leave it there for this week. Thank you so much for watching and for listening. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley. Enjoy your
Enjoy
week.
your week. Who's this?
I, I,
Hi.
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 Hi.